Okay, so how this is going to work, we have 50 minutes together, and we are going to start a conversation up here, and then we're going to invite you into the conversation. To introduce myself, I'm Christina Weber. I'm founder of WeDeepen. I am obsessed with love. And love to me is this process of gradually removing layers of the ego, negativities, fears, the things that are holding you back from being your most authentic self, coupled with ever-increasing acts of sharing, because you give to who you love. And so often, we live our lives protecting ourselves from other beings and not really revealing all that we're navigating. So I've invited, and I'm going to share how I know all my guests up here today, but I've invited each of them to be a part of this panel because they are willing to go so deep, so quickly. And sometimes we may wake up with vulnerability hangovers. Has anyone ever had a vulnerability hangover? You feel like you've went really deep with somebody and maybe you woke up and you're like, oh God, what did I tell them? Well, I will most likely have one of those after this panel discussion. Somebody else in the space might have a vulnerability hangover as well. We welcome that. And the good thing about it is with vulnerability is that, and love, is that we all provide each other with aftercare. So it's always also helpful to, when you feel as though somebody has shared something vulnerable with you, to, ask them, reach out to them the next day, ask them how they're doing. We all welcome that into the space. So my guest, Ken Page, I'm going to share how I know each of these human beings because they're all so special. And one thing, too, is about me. I have been nicknamed in the past a human LinkedIn. I love people and collecting them, people that I can have deep, authentic conversations with me, people that support my intimacy journey. And Ken Page is one of them. He is the founder of Deeper Dating. He's a psychotherapist, founder of Deeper Dating, the Deeper Dating podcast, the Deeper Dating Intensive. He's the author of the book Deeper Dating. Him and I facilitated the Dating Dojo here today, and he's one of the people that I call when I am navigating an intimate relationship that maybe I'm feeling a little shaky. He answers my phone calls, and it's so wonderful. So thank you for being here, Ken. Stell, Daddy. Daddy is a kink educator, a kink performer, and she is co-founder of the Unbound Collective. Stella and I got to work together this past summer when we hosted a boundless experience in Austin, Texas, which was an 8-hour intimacy journey that included a Shibari sound healing, an intimacy panel, and then it opened up into a play party. Anyone ever been to a play party? Who haven't they been to a play party? Look at those play parties. Yes, I've been to a play party. Does anyone not know what a play party is? Okay. A play party is, adults play through sex, and a play party is an experience that is open to all types of connections that happen, and they create, the ones that are conscious. I mean, we've heard of the swingers world, but the ones that are conscious, they guide a container or create a container. So you feel safe to go deep with the people in the space and who you're exploring intimacy with. And so Stella and I met through that experience, and she is superb in holding containers and creating sacred containers for people to experience eroticism. There's oftentimes, that topic of erotic wellness is neglected in our educational curriculum, let alone sex ed, but erotic wellness. And then Aziza and I met. We share a mutual love for somebody. Aziza's brother passed away in 2016, and he was a dear friend of mine. And in his passing, I wasn't able to go to the funeral. A friend who went to the funeral came back and said it was the weirdest funeral we've ever been to. In his passing, his friends discovered that he was living a separate life. He had a very tragic childhood, and Aziza and I connected afterwards because she is an advocate for children of abuse, trauma, and she's a survivor of trauma herself. And Aziza, I was so taken back because of the story, which you'll hear a little bit of her story today. Her story is, it's just one of those that makes your heart drop, but then she's so embodied and open that you're like, whoa. So I'm gonna invite the first question, and I'm gonna start with you, Ken. And Ken, a little bit of how this is gonna work. Ken is going to support the deepening of a conversation that is, because there's two sort of paradoxes happening right now. We have a survivor of a traumatic experience and a kink educator in the space. And so there's a lot of parallels and there's a lot of paradoxes inside of that. Ken, first off, like this topic of mind-blowing intimacy, why is it that you believe that I invited you to be a part of this conversation of mind-blowing intimacy, and what does that mean to you?
So can you hear me? Yeah. So I think that you invited me because I'm someone who can celebrate the joy and the beauty and the potency of intimacy. And I'm also someone who understands that all of us in this culture have trauma around sex, whether it's small t trauma or large T trauma. In this culture, in this world, I mean, sex on its own is so challenging and so beautiful and so potent and so intimate that on its own, it's really complex. And in this culture, there's so much wounding. So I think I hold the beauty and the honoring of the trauma. And I've been a therapist for 35 years, and and I can speak pretty freely about my own experience with both the joy and the fear around sex. So that's my thought about, because I honor people's experience in both of those arenas. That's my guess.
Daddy?
Well, Christina, I believe that you had me here on this panel, and I'm also so grateful to be here on this panel with you and Aziza and Ken. That's a real honor. I believe you have me here on this panel because I'm really willing to go there, to be vulnerable, to be open, to share about my experiences, and to act as a permissionary for others to do the same. And also here to represent Unbound and our artist collective and what we stand for, which is so much centered around liberating sensuality and giving a space for the femme rising, for the empowerment of the feminine. And we get to go there today, so I'm looking forward to it.
I don't know if we'll cover this subject today because it's mind-blowing intimacy. I'll just go there. I do host a podcast, Deepen with Christina. All three of them have guests on my podcast, but the last episode that was released that is currently up is Stella and I, and we talk about our experience with pegging. I'll pass the mic to you, Aziza, with that.
Hello? Okay. So why do I think that you invited me? Aside from the obvious, our mutual connection with my brother, I do think that, and by the way, to let everyone know, this is the first time I'm meeting this beautiful lady in person. Yes.
That's wild. I feel like I know you so well.
Yes, so right. And that's what I was going to say. I think that's part of it. Clearly, my brother, no, he did not have a choice for me to be his sister. However, he seemed to have chosen people to be a part of his life that I feel we have a mutual spiritual connection. Our auras, our vibes work. And also, I think you chose me because of the nonprofit that I run, that WeDeepen and Boundless has been a support in. And you are vigilant about raising awareness about these issues, and you know how candid I speak on the issues. And that's why I think you invited me.
So Aziza, you are author of a book, Unshamed, A Life Untainted. A Life Tainted. Thank you.
Unashamed, a life tainted.
A life tainted.
Yes.
Amazing. Can you tell us about the book?
Yes, so Unashamed of Life Tainted, it actually started as a therapeutic work. I had decided to journal and write about my experience being molested at 10 years old by my biological father and raped at 10, and then bearing four of his children. Well, they are my children, but giving birth to my own brothers and sisters, what it's like escaping him and then being able to recover, find love, enjoy sex, and help others, essentially. Well, one day, while my daughter was in the hospital, something told me to make the book public. And that's why I did. So I ended up essentially publishing a memoir, which chronicles my experience giving birth and raising my children, and eventually testifying against my father and sending him to jail for 90 years.
Daddy, you're a kink educator. It's a unique profession. I don't know if anybody goes to school and there's a program in a college curriculum to become a kink educator. How did that happen?
It was a journey for myself. It definitely was a journey. It was a journey I think that started actually quite young for me, and growing up in what I call a very sex-negative household, where there was a lot of shame around sexuality, and even if I left the house in a tank top and a pair of shorts, I was told I needed to put more clothes on. And yet, always in myself, I felt such a deep connection to sensuality. And so there was a journey for myself of diving into Tantra and Neo-Tantra, and still not quite finding that light up for myself around eroticism. And then when I found kink, I was like, oh my God, I found it. I get to do all the things that I love. I get to be messy. I get to be feisty. I get to be sensual. I get to play. I get to inflict pain if I want to, and my partner wants that. So it was just really a space for me to have all the kinds of expression that I wanted to have and that were really so true to me. And then also, in the space of DNS dynamics, dominance and submissive dynamics, I realized that I've always been dominant, and I had ex-partners that would make a joke of it. And when I finally found kink, I realized that, oh, this is the place where I can be bossy, and it's actually accepted, it's celebrated, it's what's expected of me, and I just blossom in it.
Ken, I would love for you to share with a group of how, and if you were at the Dating Dojo, you heard a little bit of this, but I heard how it impacted people, of them hearing your story and how you came to create Deeper Dating.
Sure. And I'll share this briefly because I really want to leave space, as much space as possible for the two of you. But so I grew up as a gay man. I'm 67 years old, so I grew up like in a family of Holocaust survivors where toughness was a lot, really important, and I grew up a very sensitive kid, so I built up a lot of layers of shame. I'm like one of these people that really wanted a relationship so bad. So I came of age in New York, like lived in the sex clubs, like that's what gay guys in New York did, and so I did that. And for years, looking for love ineffectively, and I never had a relationship that lasted more than 6 weeks. And but I really wanted love, and I had to become a student of what I was doing wrong. I had to relearn, and because I'm a therapist and a teacher, I taught what I learned along the way, which led to my book, et cetera, et cetera. But I mentioned in the Dating Dojo that I actually started a support group for chronically single psychotherapists, because there are a lot of us, and thank God for the support that we all got. So that's been my journey. Along the way, I was called to become a dad. I was still single, but I just felt really drawn to become a dad. I adopted a child at 45 years old, a baby from Cambodia. And that led to my meeting my husband, that and a fuckload of work on myself. And so I've kind of developed a curriculum, and I study and explore how we can turn our walls against intimacy into doors and into doorways. That's very important to me.
Okay, I'd love to go deeper. So I'm gonna ask each of you to share what's something that you have shared with people that creates a gateway for people to even go deeper in their minds, in their hearts, and create like a deeper channel of connection with you and another human being. Something that's maybe not talked about often in public forums. And I'll take the leap first and share that. So for me, what feels really vulnerable to share is I am 42 years old. I have been working in dating and relationships for about a decade. I thought I would be married and have children at this point. I never froze my eggs. And I've felt held back at times in navigating love because there's something that society will tell you that after age 35, it's no good anymore. And I will also share that there's an illusion around this, because so often men and women, I run the Love Club, and I've been doing a lot of interviews for people to join the Love Club, which is a 6-month intimacy accelerator that includes peer-to-peer matchmaking, comprehensive intimacy education, as well as accountability for one's love goals. And in those interview processes, people will share all types of restrictions that they have or who they think that they want. And a lot of times, men who are in their 40s and want children, they want somebody who's like a decade younger. However, I watch over and over them fall in love with people who are outside their age bracket once they meet them in real life in person. So to hold that experience of this longing and a desire, as well as giving it up, like surrendering to the universe and my life journey, it can feel confusing at times. There's a confusion. Sometimes our desires will conflict with one another, and I feel confused about that. And this is something that I share because I do want to feel family. I think a lot of us want to feel the essence of family this lifetime. And so that for me feels a bit vulnerable to share in front of a large group. And the last thing I'll add to that is I did fall in love with somebody this year who was newly out of a marriage and has no desire to have children again. And we're still navigating this dissonance between us. And as being somebody who works in love and intimacy, most dating coaches will tell you, if you want to have children, don't date somebody who doesn't want to have children. But it's just not that easy all the time. So I would love to invite Aziza. Yeah.
Okay.
Something that you hold that feels vulnerable to share with the group.
I think that because I am extremely public as far as my the trauma that I have suffered, what I've had to work through. What makes me vulnerable sharing with you all is that I do love sex. I enjoy sex thoroughly when it's done right, of course. But that wasn't always the case. A lot of people assume that when you have been, I'm gonna say, violated as a child by an adult, that your body kind of betrays you, right? That your body betrays you and things could feel good. And while that is the case for many sexually abused children, for me it was all psychological. It was my dad. I could not see him as anybody that I wanted to have sex with. So I did not enjoy what was being done to me in any form of fashion. I did not have my first orgasm until I escaped him. So because I speak about the issue, people do assume that, yes, I have the trauma, and I did have the trauma, which I worked through, but I have worked through it, and I enjoy orgasms, and I enjoy sex, and I'm explorative and experimental, and yeah, that's the that's the real.
You're up, Daddy.
No, Christina, I'm actually having a hard time thinking of something that would feel vulnerable or scary to share. Maybe you can prompt me with something else.
Prompt you with something else? I think that, yeah, we can go, how do we get something out of Stell? Does anybody have a question that could prompt something? I can think of something, but this is a group discussion here of intimacy. You have
I have one.
Oh, great.
Stell. I am assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that through your journey in kink, there had to be times where it was uncomfortable. Is that true? Would you say that you ever had an uncomfortable experience? Something that you did not want to, or maybe with someone you didn't particularly like their vibe, or have you had that?
I can share a story of when I was new into rope bondage, and I really believe there's a lot of value in both bottoming and topping. I think there's a lot of information that can be gained from experiencing both ends of the spectrum. And thank you for this question, Aziza. When I was new, I was rope bottoming a lot, and I was being tied by someone, and we had a negotiation. My negotiation was that I didn't want any genital touch. We'd had kind of like a cheeky conversation a bit before about he'd seen maybe some video or something where someone was tied and suspended, and then they took a vibrator and put it on the person who was suspended and just laid under them and watched them. And I was like, oh, that sounds hot. Like, I think that's hot. So in our conversation of our negotiation for the rope scene, I said no genital touch. And when I was tied and suspended, then lo and behold, he pulled out a vibrator and put it between my panties and my genitals. And I think in that space, myself being newer and also wanting to push my edges, I didn't speak up and I didn't say anything. And I just went along with it and I tolerated it. And so that was like an experience that didn't feel great to me, of course, because I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't listening to my own knowing of my boundaries. I wasn't asserting my boundaries at all. I wasn't speaking up for myself in any way. And yeah, I think from that, the feeling that I had after that was that I didn't feel that great around that person. When other people would talk about them, I didn't feel that great about them. There was a lot of healing that needed to be done around that. And so for me, the learning from that was so deeply to speak up for myself. Like, no, in the instant, this doesn't feel right. Let me just speak up right away, because there's no need to tolerate and there's no need to be in anything that isn't a 100% fuck yes, this feels incredible. I'm loving every moment of this. Like, if not, just hold off. There's always space to add more, but when something's added, we can't take it away. So I always suggest for myself and for others to titrate into things, to go slowly, to know that you can always come back and you can always add more. Thank you.
Now, Ken, I know that we had discussed like a different framework, but I want to know that question from you too, because when we were setting up the panel, you did share with me that there is something vulnerable that you could share with the group that you're currently experiencing as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Always. So this is one that comes up for me, and I say this to my husband, I say the thing that I used to say the thing that I'm most embarrassed about, the hardest, the biggest secret, is how much I love you. But that wasn't exactly accurate. It's more how much I need you. That is the embarrassing one. And so for me, and it's weird and it's quirky, but to have him lie in my arms and rest his head on my chest, I'm really good with that. But to lie in his arms and to rest my head on his chest, that's still scary for me because it's just vulnerable and it brings up a sense of need and youngness that is hard for me. So that's kind of vulnerable to share.
Has anyone ever felt like they need somebody? Anyone ever felt that way? That you need somebody else? You didn't want to admit it?
I haven't wanted to admit it, but yes.
Okay, let's raise the hand again. Raise it high if you've ever felt that you need somebody. Look at all the hands around. So I love to open up the floor for questions or something that you feel as though you want to share with the group. Does anybody have anything coming through? Yeah. And I'm going to give you the mic too.
Hi, my name is Joe. I have a question for Daddy. If you do not feel secure in your dominance, how do you deal with that?
I slow down and I tune in with myself. I remind myself to breathe deep into my belly. And for me, kink and eroticism is a psychedelic. Like, it really brings me to another space. So I let myself tune back into my meditative practices. I let myself tune back into my embodiment practices and be present with myself. And it could be something simple, like kiss my feet, or get down on the floor and massage my feet, or go get me a glass of water. Like, there can be service things that can be really simple. So when I'm in touch with myself, I can think, what do I want in this moment? Like, for example, right now, if I was, to want to dom someone in this room, I would say I need a glass of water, make sure it's room temperature, no ice, and I'd like a slice of lemon. So, you can just even think like, what do I want in this moment, and allow yourself to be a goddess. Allow yourself to want what you want, and there will be someone who wants to serve you in that way. There are people who recognize what an honor it is to serve someone, and I have submissives that have told me it was their childhood dream to carry a goddess or pull a goddess in a chariot. And they've had these deep visions within themselves since they were really young. And I think just really recognizing that there are matches for everyone in every way really gives a lot of permission to myself to want what I want and know that I deserve it. And I think that everyone in here can want what they want and know that they deserve it, whether that's serving someone else or being submissive to someone else or being dominant to someone else, that there's a space for everyone. And we really get to have the lives we want to have in so many ways.
Someone once told me that clarity is kindness. And when somebody is so clear with you about what they want and unwavering in that, so in intimacy, I once had two friends who they were dating, and they had this idea of like open love. Go have fun, be free. You can do whatever you want. And then one of them would go out and kiss somebody else, and they would come back and tell the partner they kissed someone else, and then there would be a whole blow up. And I remember looking at her and saying, why don't you just tell them that you want those lips, and you want them to be yours, and you want them to only kiss those lips? And once they had that experience, that clarity of what their desires really were, they got to move closer to it, and they got to receive the yes or the no and feel like they were met or unmet. But it's vulnerable to ask those questions and to really be clear with another person. Who in this space appreciates when someone is so clear with them and even directive at times of what they want? You look around if you're in the front row and see all the hands up.
So apparently this is where I need to be to find someone that's compatible with me dating, because I'm a Virgo, and I lay things out on the table when it comes to the things that I want in a relationship, in intimate interactions. But for some reason, a lot of the people that I have met, they think it's weird. They think it's weird for me to be clear, well, this is what I allow and this is what I don't allow. And even in just interactions, whether it be dating or just building a relationship. So it's interesting that so many of you can appreciate when someone is that clear.
Ken, what would you say about that?
I don't know. I'm kind of burning with some questions. Thank you. I'm kind of burning with some questions. Is that okay if I have so many questions for the two of you, but I wanted to ask Aziza, if you could say something about what let you be able to escape and what that inner journey was like.
What what was like?
The inner journey, to get to the point where you could, the outer journey too, but how'd you do it?
Oh, it took a long time. It took a long time because my father had created an environment where none of my brothers and sisters trusted each other. He pinned us against each other. And it took some experimentation. I poisoned his food one time. I tried to run away. And eventually, what led to my liberation was my last son that I had that he fathered woke up one morning with seizures. And my brother, was visiting at the time and convinced my mother to let him take me and my baby to the hospital because my father delivered all of my children and we didn't get any medical care. So I'm completely afraid of the outside world, believing a lot of the things my father told me, being a Black woman, not knowing if I could trust law enforcement. And I basically just took a leap and experimented. So it still took, but that's not even the moment that I escaped him. I finally did not escape him until then, 3 years after that, where something clicked. I had educated myself more. I had been paying attention. I recognized that there were people on the outside, that there was a potential that they could help me. And I took a leap of faith, and I stood up to him one day, trying to protect my sister from him. And then my mom went to the police, me and my sisters went to the police, he went on the run, and eventually was captured. So internally, it was really about building up confidence within myself. So when we talk about mind-blowing intimacy, you have to get intimate with yourself. Acknowledge what your weaknesses are, and then work towards strengthening those weaknesses. And I did that. It took years, finally, as a girl who was essentially brainwashed with a certain way of thinking. But that's eventually what happened.
Oh my God.
It's all in my book, too.
Can you also share about how you have experienced shaming in the online space? Aziza has a very popular Instagram She's an advocate for survivors of trauma, and she's also very embodied and free. Can you share about that experience?
Yeah, and I think where I can connect definitely with Stella/Daddy is one, owning my sexuality and sensuality. So on social media, while sharing and raising awareness about the impacts of abuse, I dance. I love to dance. Dancing is freeing for me. I release energy. I take in energy. The music just moves me. And I incorporated dancing, which gets pretty sensual. I like the way my body moves, with raising awareness at the same time. And yeah, people have come after me for that. Well, how are you a rape victim? How are you a sexual abuse victim, but you're dancing sexy and you look sexy and you're attractive? And my response to them is, well, why not? A lot of times, people who have been abused sexually specifically, they feel like they're already on the outside, and then people who victim blame makes them feel like that even more. So there's no reason. A lot of people don't give survivors reasons to heal because they're always seen as damaged goods very often. So I counter that by then expressing my sensuality anytime I get an opportunity to. Really owning it, right, Stella?
Oh, yeah. Wow, Aziza. I mean, your story is so inspiring to me, and how you own your sexuality is such a gift to the world, and such a gift for me to witness. Thank you.
It's hitting me that both of your stories are stories of liberation.
We have a little over 13 minutes left, and a lot of people in the space. Yes.
Okay. Teenagers. I have 5 children. Most of them are adults. I'm raising a 16-year-old boy right now. And one thing that I've done is fostered open communication about sex. So he's very open with me. And through my nonprofit, we have a day called It's Okay to Tell Day, where we encourage, it's on March 16th, and we encourage parents to allow their children to tell them anything about what's going on in their lives, whether it's embarrassing, whether it's something sexual, something that they're just afraid to talk about, without the fear of consequences. So, okay, well, so mommy, I actually tried an e-cigarette today. You know, instead of them being afraid of getting grounded or having something that they love taken away from them, then this would be a day that they could share that information, and they're completely absolved of any kind of disciplining. That's one way. Another way I find meeting young people where they are looking, which is why I use social media. TikTok, you'll be surprised how many 15, 16, 17-year-olds have reached out to me about things that they went through because they saw my TikTok video of me dancing. So I encourage parents to use a medium, something like that, and just ask your daughter, well, what do you think about this? How does this make you feel? And then they feel like you're trying to come into their world and meet them where they are, instead of talking at them from like a position of authority. So that helps a lot.
And I'll add to that too is authenticity of sharing. You know, when we start these conversations with people, is like sharing your experience to get to that conversation. I was at the Wonderland conference, and there was a panel on mind-blowing intimacy, and this woman was talking, and I asked this question because I want to open up a channel of conversation with you. So I asked for support in that. This is what she said, and this relationship with you, you're my daughter, is so important to me. And I've never had a 16-year-old daughter before either. And I've never been a mother of this type of experience to a daughter. So I want to do this right, and I'm not quite sure how to have the conversation either. Can we figure it out together?
And if she was here right now, I would say to her that what she experienced does not define her, and she has the power to grow and thrive beyond it. That's how I would open up the conversation.
So, would you be open to her daughter talking to you if her daughter was open to that?
Of course.
Yes. Thank you.
This is to everybody, okay? I hear about the fathers. Where were the mothers, and how do you all feel about your mothers as far as all this is concerned, regarding how you were abused, you went into kink, and you followed your path as well? I'm just curious. I've heard about the male side, but I haven't heard the female side.
Great question. Thank you.
So the mothers, as in what their reactions are or the role that they play? Oh, for me, my mom was in the house the whole time. She learned that my father was molesting me when I was 10 years old, but she did not know that at that time he was raping me. She was in love with my dad, but he was also abusing her, and that created this dynamic where she didn't want to lose him, but she was also afraid of him. And my organization, our focus is to strengthen the bond between mothers and daughters, because it completely degraded. She was not my ally. I do believe that moms are their daughters' allies, and she was not my ally. So I felt trapped with these two adults. One was jealous of me, and one was hurting me. And I've talked to women and moms, just educating them and making them feel secure within themselves, so then they are empowered. I mean, essentially, you know, we are our daughters, and our daughters are us. We're all women, and you know, we kind of deal with the same issues, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in my head now how to answer this question. For myself, I've had to make sacrifices in my life in order to be true to myself, and that sometimes means letting relationships go and letting connections that might typically be important for people to have in their lives go. And at the end of the day, I look at it like I'm choosing myself, and I'm choosing what's true to me, what's real to me. And you know, I think sometimes that for some folks, their family is their biggest support system, or is where they might find the most comfort in their life, and that's not the case for me. When I think of times in my life when I've been fearful of judgment, it's what's come first has been the fear of judgment from my family, because they are very closed-minded, and we live in very different worlds from each other. For me, where I'm very sex positive, and I believe in complete transparency, I believe in communication, I believe that there's not necessarily a wrong way, or that something's better than something else. It's just that we're each different, and we each have different activities that light us up and spark us. And for certain members of my blood family, it's not that way. There's judgment, and there's things that are morally, and their sense of what their morals are, not okay or not correct. And so I've just had to choose myself and put that aside. And I know, you know, I've chatted with other people who might be in similar situations as me. I have friends who are in the porn industry, and they've told me that they've had to just completely leave their family behind because of their family's negativity on them being a sex worker. And for me, it's important that I get to live my life, and I really want to be a permissionary for everyone to live their life too. And I find my chosen family, and to me that's, I was just in New York visiting what feels like my family, an 82-year-old woman who said, "I'll be your mom," and like I love her, my Nana, I love her. So I think that, sometimes we're born into families where we don't have the same perspectives, and it's important for us to be ourselves, and sometimes that means letting go of certain things.
And Ken, I know you have a very special and deep, significant relationship with your mother.
Yeah, my mom's a 94-year-old street artist, activist with her own Facebook Live show, and she's amazing. Mondays with Hetty. She's on YouTube. So I'm just going to say I want to leave space to hear from much more from the two of you, but I was blessed. I was blessed in that way. My family was willing to learn. They're willing to learn and grow.
I think we have time for at least one more question. Does anybody have a question? And if it's not a question, a brief share. Yes.
So I think there were two questions, if I was right. One was, how did I come to the name Daddy? And then I think the second was referring back to the instance that, the question that Aziza prompted, around when I was suspended and there was some things that kind of came out of the lines of what was negotiated.
And Stell, if you could do that in 30 seconds, and then we can all close out.
30 seconds. Daddy, I had on my dating profile. Shane, the co-founder of Unbound Ritual, made our first Unbound Ritual flyer, and he put my name as Daddy, and it was perfect. In terms of the instance where things came out of the lines of what was negotiated, I was very much expressing where I was at, but I wasn't fully in tune with myself. So I had the expression of discomfort, of anger, of everything, and I wasn't in tune with myself enough to say, stop.
Thank you all for joining us for this panel. Before though we do the claps, I would love each of us to take 30 seconds to share what you're up to right now and where people can find you. And I'll start with you, Ken.
So there's my Deeper Dating podcast with like 170-something episodes. There's my book, Deeper Dating, which is out there, and I'll be available to sign, in the bookstore right after this. Thank you. And what I do now is I create 6-month Deeper Dating intensives that meet weekly online for people that really want to do the deep work. The next one is starting December 5th. So if you'd like to hear more about that, meet me at the bookstore, or you'll be able to connect with me through. How do people connect? How do we all connect? How can people get our email?
Well,
list,
I think it's pretty easy. Do you guys have Instagram? You can type in Deeper Dating.
Oh.
And you'll find Ken Page right there, Deeper Dating.
That's true. Yeah, just go to Deeper Dating
take
podcast.
a picture of right here.
Yeah, you'll find me everywhere. Or you could just come up to me and take this, and I can tell you more about that. Thank you. Yeah.
You can find out more about myself and Unbound Ritual on Instagram, Unbound Ritual, or our website, unboundritual.com. My personal Instagrams tend to get deleted a lot. So you can currently find me at FEMM_daddy on Instagram, and we'll see how long this one lasts.
I am Aziza Kabibi everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And my book is available on Amazon, as well as my website, azizakabibi.com. And just search my name in wherever you get your podcasts, and you can find my podcast self-published.
Thank you all for being a part of this. And what I will invite is, as you have conversations with the three of them or myself afterwards, what we love in aftercare is words of affirmation. So I will welcome words of affirmation for aftercare, for us, for this panel, and for each other for being a part of this experience. Feel free to share with those sitting next to you some words of affirmation. You can find me at WeDeepen.com. I am also Deepen with Christina. If you search your podcast app, you can find episodes with all three of us up here. And on WeDeepen.com, you will see we represent all the Tantra speed dates. They're happening all over the United States. Also, Kimmy Inch's Something More, which is a 4-day immersion into kink and erotic wellness. There's 2 of these immersions coming up in Austin, Texas in February. We also share conferences like the Wonderland conference and the biohacking conference. And anybody who's a member of WeDeepen, you will receive all of the experiences at a network rate, because we're developing the platform to shine light on the entire industry of human connection and healthy relationships. I also have launched a love club. Hannah Marie Muse back there is one of my angels. Right hand in the Love Club, so is Asha, and we'd love for you to join us. It's a 6-month intimacy accelerator, including peer-to-peer matchmaking, comprehensive relationship education, and accountability to your love goals. So if you're currently single, come and join us. You can see that at WeDeepen.com. Hit the Love Club, you'll apply, and we start December 5th as well. Thank you all. And thank you, Wonderland Shane, for hosting.